Welcome to the Wellness Esquire Podcast. I'm Ariella, and I'm delighted for you to listen to this conversation with Jennifer Marino Thibodaux. Jennifer practiced as a litigator until she left partnership at age 34 to live a more values-aligned life. Now, Jennifer works in different ways to improve how lawyers practice law and empowers people to show up authentically and vulnerably through the power of their stories. Jennifer and I talked about her career journey, the misalignment that led her to change course, and how her definition of success has evolved over the years. We talked about burnout, knowing your worth, happiness, and values. And we also talked about the power of vulnerability, her lymphedema diagnosis, and her relationship with grief, and what happens after you let yourself fall apart. I loved getting to know Jennifer through this conversation, and I know you will too. Thanks so much for listening. Enjoy. Yay!
Yay, take two.
We did it! Fantastic. Oh, I'm so happy to talk to you.
I'm so happy to meet you officially.
Me too. I was just thinking last night how grateful I was and am that we connected now, I think, I don't know, two years ago when I thought I was going to be doing this. And thank you for being patient and also for your really meaningful messages about, why I hit pause on all of this and being ready to come back when I was. And I'm really, really grateful.
Oh, no. Thank you for inviting me. I'm so excited. I think everything that you've done is really remarkable. You've set such an example with how you've refocused your direction, in so many ways.
Thank you.
I'm excited for this.
Thank you so much. I really, really, really appreciate that. And, it's funny because I think once I started doing the various things that I do oriented around well-being, there was the point where I felt like, when I wasn't doing everything the way sort of, I would ideally like to do things in terms of, I don't believe in balance. I believe more in integration and taking care of myself and prioritizing and all of these things. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, wait, I know all these things. I should nail it at this point. I had to go through my own, wait, still human though.
Yes.
And so being able to process through, just, decide, wait, that was my priority before, and now things have shifted, and there's no more time in the day just because I have more things I want to do. And so having other people around who get that is so valuable. And so I'm grateful that you became one of those people, even though we hadn't actually met before outside of email.
Yes, no, it's great. It's great. I want to circle back on what you said about integration. I love that, but I don't know if I should wait to say it. So I'll
you can say, you know what? Go for it now because it's on your mind. We're recording and I'll, reorder things if it's appropriate, or we're just going to keep it exactly as it is, authentically, and just go with it.
All right. Well, it's a quick comment. It's basically, I also do not like the word balance. I think it should be like a 4-letter word, right? Because it's just not a thing.
Yeah.
I have often said that I believe in harmony instead, trying to harmonize everything in your life. And when you said integration, that really hit me. And I'm going to use that. I'll give you credit because that's kind of taking it one step further. I like that a lot because I feel the same way about balance. It's not a thing.
It's not a thing at all. And I think that it's become, in the sort of wellnessy movement that we're now in, which is a good thing. I see that term all the time of how are you nailing it? And I'm like, not the idea. It's not about nailing it. And when you're talking about certainly people like me, I presume there's some overlap with the way you are as well. That the idea of balance, it's, you're kind of getting into a ratio. And that's it's not realistic. I don't think it's going to be healthy. And I don't think it's conducive to what we're actually trying to figure out. And I think the ideas of integration and harmony, I actually really like the idea of harmony because there's beauty in that.
Yeah.
And we tend to, or at least I have tended until I put some intention into this, to not really actively, intentionally think about things like happiness and joy, which isn't to say that I wasn't and didn't experience those things, but it just wasn't on purpose.
Yeah.
And I think the harmony idea brings together, it's not just figuring out how you can make all the puzzle pieces work. It's And life is supposed to be enjoyed and, fulfilling and feel good and all of these things. It's not just like, did you get the math right and get to the end of the day and feel like, well, I did all of the things and I got through it. Not the idea.
Yes. Oh, that speaks to me. I mean, I thought life was a to-do list. I thought I had to just continue achieving and kind of got addicted to that for a while. So I totally get it.
Yeah.
It completely resonates with me. And by the way, balance too, as I hear you talk about it, I never thought of this before. It requires so much multitasking. And as I've gotten older, I realized that's like the worst thing ever. Like I used to take pride in how much I could do at once, right? I'd be sitting at the firm. I'd be like, on speakerphone, checking email, eating my lunch, talking to someone who came in my office. Like sounds just so exhausting now, right?
Oh my God.
And that's why I probably thought I was balancing everything I had to do at the time. But now, no, I just want to do one thing at once, right?
Absolutely. I was raised by a mom who understood that. So I was raised understanding like
amazing.
Our brains are not designed to multitask, which is not to say that I didn't do it. I just understood that it's not actually optimal. But I felt like, well, but there's so many things that I have to do. I can't just focus on the one right now. And, and there might be like, 3 seconds that I have to wait for whatever task A over here to like something to happen over there. So while I'm waiting for the 3 seconds, I might as well go over here. And certainly once phones and social media and everything entered the picture, you're like, well, I've got half a second free, so I might as well do something with it.
Gonna pick this up, right?
And go figure. Once I shifted out of doing things that way and became much more skilled at, because I think it's a skill at this point, at just doing one thing at a time, deciding what I'm going to do before I start doing it. And, decided I'm not going to take my phone everywhere I go. And I'm going to do these, like my movements and exercises and neuroperformance training while I have these, what I call empty moments, whether it's while I'm waiting for my food to heat up or waiting online or whatever it is, instead of, I don't even have email on my phone. I can access it if I need to, but it's no longer a default. And I'm on there so infrequently that anytime I do need to go on, I have to go through the whole login process again because it's logged me out. And then I have to go find the passwords and it's a whole thing, which is amazing.
That is amazing. That is amazing. I love that you did that. I've been thinking about taking social media off my phone.
I have done that.
And maybe just like on my iPad. But part of me is like, how do I do that? Like then I've just set aside time to do it. But it's been on my mind. So you're inspiring me here.
If you decide to do it, and you need some, emotional support or some strategic, like just the instructions, I'm happy to help. And I really recommend it so much. And I will admit that I can log into my Instagram on my husband's phone because I'm starting to get back into Instagram to post some of my health and wellness oriented things. And I've discovered, unless I'm wrong, you can't do stories on a computer. I think. Okay. There also might be scheduling ways around that, but there's, I think, anyways, still things you can't do. But I find that even being able to just not having it on my phone and having it on my husband's, which I only started to do after I'd taken it off of my phone for a while and lived without it. And then, so I built up the, no, I really don't want it on my phone. I don't want to use it feeling. And then even now with it on his phone, there's enough friction between like me having the idea. And it's so I only go on to do the productive thing that I want to do and not just to pick it up to aimlessly scroll and then feel worse.
Right. No, and it definitely has that result. I actually have a limit on it. I think it's down for Instagram, that is down to 15 minutes, but I do like to look at it. And I bet this resonates with you. To support women I know, I want to be able to see what's going on with them. I want to comment on their posts. I want to like lift them up. Yeah, of course, like I do like some of the curated shopping that's put in my feed as well, right? Or like recipes and stuff. But there's only so like I can Google that if I want, right? Yeah. So I don't have any sort of like time limit on LinkedIn for that purpose. I don't look at it that much. It's crazy. I used to look at it probably twice a day. I don't know that I look at it every day now, but I try because I want to go on and see going on with people in my network and comment and like, right?
Yeah.
So it's like this, I don't want to say balancing act, but
Yeah.
it's
And
balance.
I'm always kind of reviewing and revising my boundaries around
Yeah.
exactly that, because I'm on there because I get value from it and I love connecting with
Yes.
people. It helps my businesses. It helps me find my people. So
Yes.
I want to be on there, but in a productive way where I'm using it instead of it's using me.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I find that, I set boundaries a long time ago and then I had to revise them. And I'm always just phase of life, what I'm doing with my
Right.
businesses and all of these things.
Yep.
It changes. And so I just,
Yes.
take account of that. And then I sometimes have times where I'm like, oh God, that didn't feel good. Okay, what new boundary do we need?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're always evolving, right? Like
Yeah.
that's something I've learned probably in the last 5, 10 years. Like we're just constantly evolving. And I like what you said about kind of resetting those boundaries. We don't have to be so rigid. I think flexibility is important.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God, so important. Okay, so I want to get into your law and related journey,
Okay.
starting with what led you to law school in the first place?
Okay, so I am that person that in high school knew what they wanted to do. Like I wanted to be a lawyer, and really that was because I joined the mock trial team at the urging of one of my favorite teachers. Now, the backstory on that, which is I'll just give you a little bit of, I was like very shy. I didn't like speaking up in class. I was a straight A student who never raised her hand. I didn't like to draw attention to myself, right? But I love to read. It could be like my history textbook or those John Grisham novels, to date myself, that were so popular at the time. I also love to write, and it could be a paper for school, or it could be like I had a column in our high school newspaper. It was called On Marino's Mind, my maiden name. And I just wrote whatever I wanted, which is very much a foreshadowing
Yeah.
to JMT Speaks, I realize now. This teacher's like, you should try, mock trial. And it totally changed my life because I just remember the first time I stood up from council table, because we would argue after hours at the county courthouse, and delivered this opening statement. It was honestly like a spark that just like lit this fire in my belly. And I thought, like, this is it. This is what I want to do. I want to be a lawyer. I was hopped up on all those John Grisham novels, right? So that was it. Like that was my plan. So I went right from college to law school.
Okay. So take me through law school, through, in a nutshell, what you're doing now. How
Yeah.
you got
So
here.
this year is actually my 20-year anniversary from graduating law school. And if you would have told me 20 years ago that I wouldn't be practicing law at a law firm, I just like would have looked at you like you're totally crazy, because that's all I ever wanted to do. Part of that dream in high school was, all right, I know that I want to go to law school and be a lawyer. I want to become a partner at a law firm because that's a really big deal. And I was an overachiever and achievement junkie, I think, even at that young age. So I set my sights on that. After law school, I clerked for a year in the New Jersey Superior Court Appellate Division, and then I joined the firm that became my home for 11 years. I was at Gibbons PC at its Newark headquarters, first as an associate and then as a partner. I was primarily a commercial litigator, like so many of us were or are. I also did some white collar work with internal investigations, electronic discovery counseling work, which at that time, now everything is AI. Back then, everything was the proliferation of e-discovery. And then just over 8 years ago, after being a partner at the firm for 2.5 years, I decided to take this total left turn in my career unexpectedly. And I joined Thomson Reuters Practical Law as a senior legal editor. And at the time, I was hired to start the New Jersey Litigation Service. And the one thing that I realized I had missed from private practice, aside from the people who I worked with, some of them still remain close friends, I really missed being on my feet, whether it was in a courtroom, at a deposition, doing a client presentation, teaching a CLE. So I decided to go and become, in addition to my day job, an adjunct professor at Seton Hall Law. And I did that for 2 semesters. I loved it. But I realized the stories that I was telling the students and speaking at some women's forum events about my time in practice were really resonating. So I thought, what if I started my own platform? I've always loved writing, and now this storytelling I'm doing seems to really kind of hit home for students. So I created JMT Speaks in January of 2020. Took me a while to get the website off the ground, but I was so excited. Then COVID hit, which was actually a blessing as an entrepreneur because I was able to do so much virtually that I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. And somehow it's been 5.5 years, and that's what I'm doing.
Amazing. So what were the kinds of stories that were resonating with students?
So a lot of it started with imposter syndrome when I actually was speaking with the Women's Law Forum at different events, being really candid about the fact that I constantly felt like the other shoe was going to drop, that I was going to be found out as a fraud. And that continued with me even when I became a partner at the firm. Some of it as well was about knowing your worth. And at the time, I had really been going through, I think somewhat unconsciously, this realization that my work was not my worth. And that was because when I left partnership at the firm, I realized it was a huge part of my identity.
Yeah.
So it was talking about that with students, and the gender identification didn't matter. That really was hitting home. Then I started going to more events and talking to people, let's say the New Jersey Women Lawyers Association, Essex County Bar, and meeting people and getting the reaction either of, you left? Like, isn't that a huge mistake? Or tell me how you did it, right? Like, don't tell anyone, but I want to leave too. And I thought there's something here that the story of leaving law firm partnership and why I did it, because I felt this disconnect with my happiness and my values, that started to become a recurring story and theme.
When you left your firm, did you understand at that point that what you were doing career-wise so far was not aligning with your values and it wasn't making you happy? Or did you just, like, what was that experience like? What did you understand at that point? And then what did you start to better understand about why you'd left in the first place after you'd left and started having all these conversations?
On that last one, I think I'm still working through that, even though it's been 8 years.
There's a lot to work through.
It's a lot, right? It's kind of like a breakup. They say, it takes half the amount of time you were together to get over it. So I don't know, 11 years, I should be over it now. But not that it was this, I don't mean it was like this horrible experience or anything. It wasn't a fit for me. And I think at the time, I didn't realize that I was actually really burning out. What had happened even before I became partner, and I was a partner for 2.5 years before I left, was I constantly felt cynical. And for anyone who knows me now, that's really not my personality. So I felt cynical. I felt that, I had this imposter syndrome. I would doubt my professional efficacy, and I was always exhausted. I felt like I was running back-to-back marathons, and we've all heard it's a pie eating contest and the prize is you get more pie, right? So I very much felt that, and I thought that it was normal. It wasn't until many years after I met that I left that I realized those are the exact symptoms of burnout as defined by the World Health Organization. Cynicism, doubting your professional efficacy, and exhaustion over work. That was like this brain explode moment for me, because back then, when I was in it, if you would have said to me, I think you're burned out, I would have taken offense. I would have said, what do you mean? Like, I could do this. Look at me doing all the things. Mm-hmm. I can hack it. I am not burnt out. I take offense to that. But it was this realization that I was becoming very unhappy, that I wasn't finding meaning in my work, that I felt kind of this emptiness, that the work that gave me the most joy was the pro bono work I was doing, for example. Then I became a mom, and I was like, well, I don't really like this feeling of being miserable all the time. I want to be my best self. Like, I don't want to come home from work and think I'm cynical, I'm exhausted. Like, never mind, my husband had been dealing with that for years, but now I have an infant. And that's when I really did for the first time since my senior seminar in college, a core values exercise, and it all came into place for me. And that, to answer your question going back, was when I realized this is not in alignment with me. This is not authentic to who I am and who I want to be. I have placed success above everything else in my moral compass. I've overvalued it. I need to recalibrate, be authentic, get rid of being that achievement junkie, and focus on harmony, as we've said.
So how did you previously define success? And how do you now define success?
Success to me then was about work. It was about, in the big, becoming a partner at a firm. Obviously, I'm objectively successful if I'm a partner at a law firm. I am successful if I get a win on that motion to dismiss, right? If I get a good line of testimony during a deposition. All of those things were success. It pains me to say it never crossed my mind to think about success in a personal respect. I'm successful because I haven't worked this weekend. More like, oh, it's a badge of honor that I billed 7 hours over the weekend, right? Those things to me were success. Now success is a more fulsome picture for me. It really is that harmony. And now I'm going to say integration of all of the things in my life. Today will be a successful day for me, for example, because I started early morning doing this podcast with you. I have a bunch of things I need to accomplish at work. I'm going to get them done in time to go meet the camp bus, spend time with my son, hearing about his, Olympics at camp today. And then I'm going to go have dinner with a bunch of women that I met when I was a trustee at a nonprofit, and I haven't seen them in a while. That's a successful day. Oh, and I did get up early and exercise. So that's a really successful day, right? I did all of the things in the time I was allotted, and I couldn't think of those kind of day by day micro moments as success, but it is.
What was that values exercise that you did?
So let me start by saying the first time I did it in my senior seminar in college was so wild to me. There were only 12 of us in the seminar. We sat at this like U-shaped table with the professor up front. We come in one day and there's like this little heap at everyone's place setting, these little strips of paper. We're like, what's going on? And we sit down and I pick them up and I'm looking into the woman next to me and like they have words on them. And they say things like, faith, family, respect, community, so on, so forth. And our professor's like, these are all core values. I'm going to lead you through this exercise to kind of whittle down this stack of paper into maybe 3 to 5 core values, maybe even 1. And I remember doing this and sitting there looking at, family, respect. And I was like, okay, like these are the things that are really, really important to me. And it wasn't until many years later when I was leaving the firm or thinking about leaving the firm that I was like, I got to get back in touch with who I am. And that was the only thing I could think of. So, I just Googled core values, printed out this list. I didn't cut it up into any sort of like little strips of paper, like a fortune cookie strip, right? But it was really right at the top of the list was that word authenticity. And it was like lit up in like Las Vegas neon blinking lights. I was like, that's it. Like, that is what I need to do, because everything I've done that's not giving me meaning, that I'm, sacrificing I realized at that point, my 30s, my 20s, I had sacrificed my 30s. Then my weekends with my husband and friends and family. I'm like, I need to figure out who I am and what matters to me. So that was the exercise.
So what were the first thing when you did that exercise or after you did that exercise? Do you remember the first things you did right after that to just start finding yourself again and showing up as yourself again?
I felt like I had written myself a permission slip in a way, because I had this realization that I need to leave my job. And that was very freeing. And I had never actually allowed myself to think that or really say that or do anything about it. So it was kind of like this breath of fresh air, this permission slip, like, okay, actually everything is going to be okay now, because I will leave this job. I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know where I'm going to go, what's going to happen. Over the years, I had applied to a couple of in-house positions, which is pretty common for a litigator. Hadn't had any bites. And And I think for me, just that first step was the release and the realization that it was going to be okay. And now it was time to think about, what was I going to do? And that was a big question mark.
Yeah. Had you known anyone who'd left law to go do anything else? Or were you the first person in your world?
I was really the first person in my world. I mean, yes, there had been colleagues who went to work at a client, right? They went in-house, or people who maybe became an AUSA. They went to a nonprofit. They did something in government, right? Those are the more traditional routes for someone leaving a law firm. And also for better or worse, I guess, for folks who hadn't become a partner yet, right? They had realized and they had left before that, maybe that 7-year itch. So I was really the first, and that was very scary. And it wasn't until later, as we were chatting about, when I started sharing that story, people said, I've had the same thought, right? Like, how did you do it? You are so brave. And I never thought in that way. I thought, oh my God, am I making this huge mistake after everything I've worked for? I don't feel brave. I feel anything like a coward, like I'm running away. And it took me a while to realize I did do this courageous thing. And that's why it spoke to so many people. And I didn't have this example. And the job that I took is very much, particularly back in 2017, this unicorn position. So it was this completely new path, I guess, that I was forging.
When you did leave and you started sharing all these stories, and that led to people saying, either are you crazy or tell me how.
Yeah.
Did it feel just natural and kind of easily authentic to start talking about the values and imposter syndrome and authenticity and all of these things that have now been so impactful for you and for other people? Mm-hmm. Or, I mean, how did that start even coming out of your mouth? Because you hadn't done that before. Yeah. You did this crazy thing of leaving law and then just starting out being super vulnerable.
Yes. So really great question, because at the time, I don't think I was fully allowing myself to be vulnerable. I thought, like, I'm talking about facts. Like, this is my story. Like, these are smaller audiences. And, I'm not great at accepting compliments. So I was like, no. Like, I'm not brave. Like, it just got to that point. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not like a huge deal. Like, just kind of brushing it off. It wasn't, I think, the writing piece. I also have a blog on my website and a newsletter. So I think writing it was a lot easier because you're not face to face with someone. And the groups I was speaking to at that time were much smaller. They were law students. So, it wasn't like speaking to a room of my peers, right, as I might do now, or people, older than me or more senior in their career. And maybe to anticipate your next question a little bit, when I have speaking engagements now, sometimes I actually say, I start by saying, there was a time in my life that I thought the word vulnerable meant to be weak. Mm-hmm. And I was so wrong, because to be vulnerable is to be authentic and honest. And that is how we create community and connection. And being vulnerable doesn't mean oversharing. It doesn't mean spilling your guts out. It just means being truthful to whatever's happening in that moment. And I kind of put that out there sometimes as like before we say anything, like, this is what I'm going to say. And everyone kind of like resets. So that's my vulnerability journey, I guess.
Yeah. Well, when you do that, you're in the way that you the values exercise kind of gave you permission to be authentic and to do mm-hmm. what you needed to do. This is you giving whoever's in the room, whoever the audience is, permission to be vulnerable, because I mean, certainly in law and other, high performing industries, and also just, I think, overall in our culture, we think exactly what you said. Vulnerability equals weakness. And, mm-hmm. I'm supposed to be just tough all the time. And here's what that means. And, by the way, often it leads to people just completely burning out, falling apart, not being themselves, and just pushing through things that are not okay for them. That's not strength.
No, it's not strength. And I think what really took me aback was when I was, when I gave notice at the firm and I told, my colleagues and partners what I was doing, everyone was floored, like flabbergasted, because if anything, I wasn't an imposter at my job. I was an imposter at how I showed up. I had people say to me and compliments that really mean so much to me to this day. We thought you would be the first female managing director of this firm. You were like the firm person, right? Like, as I was like playing into this role, no one knew.
Right.
My husband knew that I was miserable, but no one I worked with really knew how I was feeling. And a very important lesson in vulnerability was one that I learned actually on the fly when I gave notice to the managing director at the firm. And of course, the managing director is like the CEO of the firm, right? Like the most important person there. And I go in and I remember driving to work and I was petrified. I walk into his office, I have the appointment, I shut the door, and he's, obviously taken aback. And I sat down and I blurted out something I hadn't planned to say. And I was like, I'm actually really nervous for this conversation. I just said it. It was how I was feeling. And I'm like, I hope that I don't get emotional, but I might. And I hope you understand that's because it means a lot to me and it's very difficult. And like the whole air in the room changed. I could see kind of like just his shoulders dropped a little. Mine did. I took a deep breath. And then I said what I had planned to say. And it was only because in that moment, I allowed that vulnerability through. And because of his reaction as well, I owe him a debt to gratitude. He wasn't cold or anything. I think if anything, he looks like surprised when I came in, curious. He probably knew what was coming when I said that and made the space for me to be vulnerable as well. So that was a huge lesson that I reflect on over 8 years later.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing how just, fantastic that it came out accidentally,
Yeah.
but what an amazing lesson in how valuable it is to just sort of set the stage with your emotions. And people don't know. I mean, I feel like I've heard so many versions of the part of your story where people were stunned that you of all people were leaving because this is who they envisioned you to be and expected of you. And they had no inkling of what was really going on inside. And I hear those kinds of stories from lawyers all the time, which is so much of what led to me wanting to do this podcast, because, people think, you forget that you're hiding often so much inside, but you think that everyone else is showing how they're doing on the outside, which is not the case. But, there's so many stories of like, well, everyone else is doing amazing. And so why am I falling apart, or other things where it's just, it becomes clear that no one knows. Most people don't know how anyone is really doing. And then people are often just stunned to find out how much the people they thought were, just kicking ass were actually completely falling apart, just doing a really good job, putting on a happy face.
100%. I mean, we are all human. And I'd like to think that for the most part, people are good, right? Like, imagine yourself in that situation. If someone came to you and said, I'm actually really nervous, you'd be like, all right, like, you're not going to be like, well, let's ratchet up my jerk factor, right?
Hopefully
like,
not.
Okay, okay. I've been in some rooms, at work over the years where someone will say, I really don't like public speaking. I'm like really nervous right now. And people are like, all right, like, we're going to give you a break. Like, it's fine. Like, thank you for sharing that. Okay. So I think that people want that connection and they want to understand that the person that they might think appears one way has something else going on the inside. I think it was something you said reminded me, it must have been 2 years ago now, or maybe it was last year. Anyway, there was an event put on by the New Jersey Bar Association Wellness section all about what happened when you fell apart. And there were all these speakers that were all women that were answering this question. There were judges, there were, esteemed attorneys, there was me, and we talked about what happened. And I was flabbergasted to see some of these judges get up there and talk about, I still feel like an imposter, or this happened in my life and I never thought I'd get over it. And you just know these people as their name, their reputation, what you see at events. And the day was magical because everyone was vulnerable and you didn't walk away thinking less of them or like they were weak. If anything, you trusted them. You saw that they were strong people and they were human. And that's what you want in a leader, right?
Yeah.
So to me, when you're vulnerable, you lead with authenticity.
Yes. And I think I love that you call this magic. I think there's also so much magic that happens when a leader, which doesn't have to be someone in,
No, it doesn't.
A role considered to be a leadership role.
Anyone.
When a leader shows up in that way, and it helps people who haven't yet been able to process what they are dealing with or whatever their struggles are, suddenly they realize they're not alone. It's not just them.
That's exactly right.
And I've watched people just like turn into themselves. Their eyes change when they hear someone else say whatever it is, their own story about mental health, physical health, trauma, failure. I mean, all of the things. You hear someone else share the things that you think you're not supposed to say and that no one is, experiencing except for you. And you go, it's not just me. Right. How can that be? So, and you can have these kinds of challenges and get to that point and say all this stuff out loud.
Right. Right. It's not just you. You have this connection. And there were women there who spoke about, being neurodivergent, what happened when they went through a divorce. And these aren't things that necessarily everyone in the room is going to relate to. But the way they actually put themselves out there, the stories that they told, the lessons that they shared, that's going to translate in your life in one way. And a lot of the women I didn't know, I remember there's this woman in an audience. I didn't realize she was a speaker at the time. I was admiring how fashionable she looked. She had this great jacket, this bag. And I was like, oh, this woman, I was like, she looks amazing. She got up and talked about losing a child to cancer. Ooh. And it was like, you never know what people have been through. And that was, there's not a word to describe what that was like listening to that, but you can't judge a book by its cover. You can't think everyone's got it all together because of, the way they look or whatnot. Right.
Yeah. And I think when people show up in that way, so authentically and vulnerably and just share their reality, not their perceived reality, I think it also has a really powerful impact on the way that we play the comparison game. Because it's so easy to look at the fashionable woman and be like, oh, well, clearly she's got it all together. Exactly. No struggles, so confident, she's got everything the way she wants it. And who knows, maybe she just loves fashion and that's always been, her thing. Or who knows, maybe the fashion is, maybe that's the truth, but maybe there's also an element of armor. Maybe it's, I'm feeling like my absolute shittiest today. And so I've got to really do anything I can to make myself feel as good as possible. And that's going to come in the form of clothes.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The event truly was magical because of all the women who got up and said whatever it was that they said. And for me, that event really stays with me because it was the first time I spoke publicly about being diagnosed with a chronic condition and what my treatment had looked like at the time. And I remember driving home and I was like kind of shell-shocked that I did it. Glad that I did. I had several women come up to me in the audience and say, I actually have the same chronic condition and no one talks about it. Nobody cares. Like to see you talk about it. Thank you. And I came home and I flipped on my laptop and I recorded a video. I said we all had 7 minutes to speak and I recorded what I had said. Like I didn't put more lipstick on, nothing. I just did it because I'm like, I don't know that I'll ever be able to deliver these 7 minutes again. And I kind of had almost like a vulnerability hangover the next day. I was like very emotional. I was like, I put it out there. Like it's now out there. Like now everybody knows. And I'm like, but I think I'm okay with it. Right? Like I'm finally okay with it. And that actually helped my healing process as well. So I think there is that component when it comes to sharing your truth when you are ready.
Yeah.
So
can we
that's
actually
my experience.
dig in a little bit more to
Sure.
that and talk
Yes.
about the
Yeah.
diagnosis and
Yeah.
the impact on you initially and then longer term, personally, professionally?
Sure. Yeah. So 2 years ago now, it was June 6th. So that event must have been last year. It was June 6th, 2023. I was diagnosed with lymphedema in my left foot, ankle, and lower leg. And most people don't know what that is. I know when I heard it, I was like, lympho what? It's basically this chronic swelling because your lymphatics are faulty and the fluid is not traveling through your body, getting up to your heart. And it just causes this swelling, this feeling of achiness and heaviness. I constantly felt like my foot was going to explode. And for me, it kind of came out of nowhere. I had taken an 11-hour flight to this dream vacation in Hawaii several months prior. And when I got off the plane, Ariella, my foot was literally doubled in size. Like I can't even explain it any other way. And I was wearing like my hokas and leggings. It wasn't like my foot was just out. And at the time I thought, well, this is strange. I had finished physical therapy. I had done something to my ankle a few months before, and my foot was normal since January when I was released from physical therapy. I said, it must be related to that injury. Like this is just going to settle back down. Obviously, I was in a high pressure cabin for 11 hours, but then you're in Hawaii and it's warm. And while it settled down, it never quite reset. And I didn't get it checked when I was there because I figured it was just this thing with this injury. Got home, saw a podiatrist, and it's couldn't figure out what was going on, and it started to get worse and worse, and it was heavy and it was traveling into my leg. Finally saw a vascular surgeon who diagnosed me, and even when he did, I didn't accept it. He's like, oh, I'm going to send you to specialized physical therapy. You'll get your foot back. And I hung hope to that, thinking, okay, he says I'm going to get my foot back, like it's going to look like normal. No, like I wasn't hearing what people were trying to tell me, because for the first year, I had to wear, and this is what I spoke about on that the day in response to the question, what helped when you fell apart. I had to wear gauze wrapped around my toes, a stockinette up to my knee, a layer of foam, 3 bandages, and more foam. And I did that for a solid year. Now that doesn't sound like much, but because there's no cure for lymphedema, you have to be in compression for basically 23 hours a day to control the swelling. And you go for specialized physical therapy, which is this manual lymphatic drainage, which I know is like all the rage on Instagram now to do like these lymphatic drainages, but it's like a real thing. And it was very difficult because, to say the least, because I was on an emotional roller coaster. I couldn't wear shoes. I couldn't wear clothes. Very kind strangers would constantly ask me, did you break your ankle? Like, what's going on? Right. And I'd say, oh, I actually have this thing. And then they're like, oh, like that's awkward. I had this orthopedic shoe I would have to wear. I was angry. I was in denial. I was embarrassed. I was sad. But what you might find interesting is for a very long time, I didn't allow myself to cry because I felt lymphedema has taken so much from me already. I am not giving it my tears because that means it will be managing me rather than me managing it. And I refuse to give up. And then finally, my friend Jen Grasso, who's also a former litigator and she's a coach now, said to me, no one is going to give you a gold star or a trophy for not crying. Don't you think you should cry? And I had something else happen. Like I lost a contact lens, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but I wear these custom lenses anyway. And I lost it. Absolutely breakdown, lost it. And I shed these tears, and it really did help me finally go up and down the emotional roller coaster and land on gratitude. I had really lost sight of how lucky I was that I don't have lymphedema because I had cancer. Many people who have lymph nodes removed end up as a souvenir from breast cancer having a completely swollen arm and hand for the rest of their life. I have treatment options. I'm able to afford them. I have insurance. I have a support system. I am fit. I can bend down to do all the wrapping myself. I don't have any underlying health conditions. I've met people who are remarkable, other lymphedema patients who gave me support. And that helped me find gratitude. And that has been a huge part of a life learning lesson for me, for sure. I learned to laugh at myself during that time. I learned the importance of allowing yourself to feel all the feels. It gave me an open mind. I remember the first time I went to a professional event wearing a jumpsuit and boots. And I was the girl who wore a sheath dress and blazers and heels everywhere, but I had to change my identity. And everyone's like, you look amazing. Oh my God. I'm like, you know what? I feel good, right? Like I did these new things. I saw like a functional medicine doctor who helped me, and he taught me about the connection between my mind, body, and spirit, all these things I never would have done if not for having this diagnosis. So in so many ways, it really did change my life.
Now, in this phase where you have gratitude, do you still let yourself fall apart when you need to?
I do. I do let myself fall apart when I need to, although it happens much less, I will say. So a year ago, I was able to transition out of all of the bandages when the swelling really got under control and start to wear like this custom compression sock, kind of has like built-in foam at the ankle. And it made a huge difference for me to be able to like wear shoes and clothes and, I hate to say it, hide it, which feels inauthentic, although I've gotten over that recently. So the breakdowns come a lot less. I had some of them. I had like a breakdown, I want to say, around the holidays over it because I was exploring surgical options and going through this testing. And I was like, why do I have to deal with this? It's not fair. And all these sentiments that we all feel. But since then, and since I had a successful experience with the surgery I elected to have, I've really come to a place of peace.
Thank you for sharing that. It's, all of this, the Wellness Esquire started for me because I have my own complex chronic health story.
Yeah.
And I thought, it's amazing for me to now think about this, that this was my mindset, but I genuinely thought it was just me.
Yeah. And I get it.
Yeah. And, I got to a point, long story short, where I was just like, I'd spent many years professionally not telling anyone because I'd been advised not to, and all of those things.
Yeah.
And I just got to a point where I was like, I'm not looking to like talk about it all the time, but this is part of who I am. And it's what led to part of what I'm doing in my career. And sometimes, like, safety wise, it would actually be good for people to know what I'm going through. But I feel like I'm just not even allowed to say it. And so I got to this point where I posted on LinkedIn about being an attorney with a complex, chronic, and quote unquote rare disease, story and history. And it felt so frightening to do it because I felt like, how is this going to impact my career? And this is crazy. And I've been told not to do this and to talk about it. And then I was so blown away by all of the stories that then immediately came into me. And I was like, how did I think this was just me?
But you do. I've been there.
Because we don't talk about it. And so,
exactly.
And I, of course, the details of each of our stories is going to be unique to us, but the general, underlying story and the gist is just like, there's something going on. And so many people in our industry have health stuff, and we think that we're supposed to hide it, pretend it's not real, imply that it's not going to have any impact at all on our work, on our careers, on our lives. And, and if it does, then we're doing something wrong or we're weak or whatever. Yeah. And, I've come to the point of realizing that I was like you. I wanted to do everything I could to not have my health dictate my life.
Yes.
And I sometimes took that to a degree that was not just unhealthy, but also sometimes actually dangerous. and getting to a point finally of being like, well, actually, it might impact some of my life. And I sort of had that thought in hindsight of, how a lot of my life and career did play out. But it's a conversation that I think we need to have more of, because then it just, as we've been talking about with all this vulnerability and authenticity, no one's alone in this. And the reason I talked about it that first time was I just thought, well, I had no one. And I had no example of, yes, you can do this. I knew I'd be able to do whatever I wanted to do and whatever I set my mind out to do. But my path was different than, that of everyone around me who was or was seemingly healthy. And I just felt like, well, someone else out there needs to know that you can do it. And people did. And one of the messages that I got when I posted was from a law student who had just been diagnosed with a rare brain tumor and was like, this is what I needed to see today, because I've been just trying to figure out how the hell am I going to do this? And I see that I can. And I was like, okay, I guess that was a good decision to post this thing.
It absolutely was.
And so when we share, I mean, this is, you've got such a focus on sharing stories, sharing your story, so then other people feel like they can too. And it can really be life-changing for people.
Well, first, let me say, I think that the legal profession does owe you a debt of gratitude for all of your vulnerability and the fact that you create and hold space for these conversations and by putting your story out there. So let me say thank you for doing that, because I know that was how and why we connected on LinkedIn and why today is so special. I also have to say that there really is power in owning your story. And for me, I had the opportunity to contribute to and edit a women's anthology, and my chapter was about what happens when life throws you a curveball, right? Mine being the diagnosis of lymphedema, yours a different chronic condition. It could be anything else, an unexpected divorce or a job move, whatever your curveball might be. We can all learn from one another if we just talk about it. And I felt like taking ownership of my story really allowed me to step into my power as well. And in turn, that resulted in, and when I have speaking engagements now, one of the things I say is embrace your superpower. To me now, lymphedema is actually a superpower. It's a diagnosis, but it doesn't define me. Yes, it's a huge part of my life and my identity now. But it's not everything there is about me. I'm a bunch of different things. And I think that when you get to that place where you can own your story, you do inspire other people to do the same. And they say to you, this is the post I needed to hear today. It means that I can do it, right? It does truly make a difference. And you build connection, you build empathy, and that is a superpower.
Yeah. So there were a couple of things you said earlier that I wanted to bring up and then now do again, because when you were just acknowledging my role in impacting lawyers in the well-being space, I sort of sat here going, okay, say thank you, acknowledge it, you've done things. And you made a couple of comments earlier about how hard of a time you either have or had with accepting compliments.
Yes,
and also about just acknowledging your self-worth and your value and taking that in for yourself and then even putting it out to the world. So talk about that experience and process for you and your journey with owning your value and your awesomeness and just who you are.
That's a really hard question, I have to say, because I think it's still a work in progress. I'll say this on a live recording, I will be 45 in a few weeks. And I think that part of getting older has been freeing as well. I remember turning 40 and thinking, well, I've got less F's to give now about a lot of different things. And I very much feel that 5 years later. So I think there is this, maybe it's like a wisdom or this freedom that comes with age where it's like, here I am, right? Like take it or leave it, as well as this is who I am. And like, I'm okay with it. Like I look back at the season of my life, the very long season where I was a practicing attorney and I wore the suit and the heels and I was kicking ass and I went to work every day. And like, that's great that I did that, but like, I don't want that anymore. Like, I have evolved, as we were saying earlier. I am a mom first and foremost. Like, I love my job. It gives me flexibility. It gives me professional fulfillment, right? I have the business that I started. I get to meet people like you. Like, those things bring me such joy that I don't think about my work as my worth. I'm worthy simply because I am. Like, no one has to tell me my worth, no court, no client. I'm worthy because I'm here. I'm a person. I'm myself. So it's hard to put into words, but other than it's a definitely a process, and I have to remind myself about it now and then. But I think those acknowledgments go a long way for me personally.
Good answer. And, I think it's so valuable to acknowledge that it's all a journey and a process. And even once you start understanding it, that doesn't mean you've nailed it, and it keeps going.
Right. Yes. Yes.
I actually find I enjoy now that I'm where I am, I really enjoy the process of growth because I can understand where I came from, and I feel so much better about myself and how I show up, also physically, and all of these things. And it's been such a fun ride to get to this, sort of improved, superior place. And so it also feels fun instead of daunting for me.
Yeah, I like that.
To feel like, even when I have moments, for example, when I realize, oh, wow, I just did like a maladaptive perfectionism kind of thing. And like, I'm beating myself up about, how I didn't do that thing as well as I would have liked to. I can catch it so much faster and, go through wow, God, there's just still so much work about, my perception of myself and how I expect, everything to go. Okay, more to do. Here we go. I didn't know there was like a whole other category.
Yeah. Well, we might have to book a second episode just to talk about perfectionism, because that has definitely been a huge roadblock for me. If you don't know Jordana Confino,
we just recorded and I love her.
Oh, fantastic. I was going to say, she's the person to talk to because she's a literal expert and has her own journey, and that she's amazing when she shares, right? But so much of her work speaks to me, and that is and has been something that I say I'm a recovering perfectionist. I know that sounds silly, but I catch myself in that all the time still. And that was a problem with my identity and my worth and all of that as well. Like that, and achieving because I had to be perfect, not letting people see that I have a compression sock because it was like, not that I thought I like looked perfect, but you want to look a certain way or not put your vulnerability
you have in mind.
Right. Like, here's my vulnerability for everyone to physically, literally see, right? Like, here's my imperfection for you all.
On display.
So there's on display. So that's been a huge, huge thing that I'm still very much working on. Okay. And I can't wait to listen to that episode.
Oh, it's amazing. And I adore her. And we can do another episode just focus on perfectionism. And I think it's worthwhile because there's so much to dig into. I mean, there's so much to dig into.
It's a thing.
Are there practices that you focus on for yourself, either on a daily or somewhat regular basis, to help yourself show up well, whether it's specific to the lymphedema or perfectionism or the things you do before speaking, or just something that helps you stay aligned with your values, feel good about yourself, and show up feeling as good as you can on any given day?
It's honestly on every given day for me, it's really moving my body.
Yeah.
And that was before lymphedema. That is more so after lymphedema. One of the things that really helps the swelling and the associated feeling is walking. So I am a meme. I am a middle-aged woman with a weighted vest. and
Love
I
it.
walk a lot. That goes a huge way for me. And by the way, I should say that the surgery that I had earlier this year really alleviated a vast majority of the discomfort that I feel. And that has been completely freeing for me. It's moving my body every day. I have gone through phases where I was doing bar method forever. Then I was training at a gym. Now I just started doing this special type of reformer Pilates, and it's got to be something that gets me moving because I feel great when I do it and it keeps me centered. So that's how I start my day. And then honestly, for me, I'm an avid reader. I read any and everything. It's like I have to read every day before bed to get myself calm and to reset and to show up like, as I want to. So those are very small things, but honestly, those two routines for me go a long way because look, when I was in private practice, I would come home and I'd like rage exercise on the elliptical at like 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night because I'd be so stressed. Like right now, like I hope I'm in my pajamas. Right? Like I can't imagine doing that. And although I've always been an avid reader, I talked about John Grisham in the 90s before, and now I read any and everything. For those, 10 plus years that I practiced, I read like Dan Brown, like the Da Vinci Code. Like I read like 3 books a year because I couldn't stand to read anymore outside of work. So I finally fell back into that habit. I feel like myself, it brings me comfort, it brings me joy. And I do consider myself a storyteller. So I love reading other stories. And I wanted to mention that earlier, hearing your story, hearing the stories of other women and professionals who share. I can't walk in your shoes, but if you tell me your story, man, I can learn something. It's good. I'm going to take away something for myself, but now I know what your experience is like. I love that.
Amazing. Anything else you want to cover today? And then we're going to do a part 2.
No, I'm excited for our part 2. No, I'm just, like I said, so grateful to be able to meet you after, meeting quote unquote online, and having the opportunity to chat today. I truly meant what I said about everything that you do to create and hold space for wellness in the profession. People like you and Jordana and so many others who are really focusing on wellness in the profession are truly making a difference, from law students all the way up to seasoned people in their career. So thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for letting me share my story here as part of it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for helping me take in the compliment.
Taking the compliment. Just accept it. You've got it.
Taking it in.
It's deserved.
And thank you for being part of this community. That's what I want the Wellness Esquire to be so much about, is bringing, because there are so many of us who share this kind of mindset and values around being ourselves and designing our careers and our lives to feel good and sustainable and healthy and fulfilling. And the more all of our stories are out there and it feels like, oh, that's totally attainable, I can do that too, the less unusual it's going to be.
Yeah,
so we need everybody.
I totally agree. We need this. We need to normalize this. By the way, you're a great conversationalist. It's not just that you're like creating this space, but you make it easy to talk to and very comforting. I feel like I've known you forever. By the way, where are you located now? I know you've been traveling for a while.
So today we're in New York, actually.
Okay.
Which was an unexpected. We were just in Israel. We had my father-in-law was just diagnosed with cancer last week and had some surgery complications. So we did a quick, get on a flight thing. So we're going to be on the East Coast for, I think, a couple of weeks and then off to Hawaii.
Okay. Amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in northern New Jersey. So when the time is right, we will have to meet.
I would love to do that. And since I don't really know what our plans are now, since this wasn't part of the plan anyways, but the nice thing, it's weird to say it like that, but I saw a friend in Kanye yesterday. We saw a bunch of friends last night. And, so we're making, we weren't planning to be here, but there's people here that we want to see. Yeah, so we're figuring out, all right, weren't planning to be here, but we are. So how do we make the most of it? How do we fill our lives up? Who do we get to see? All of these, my whole schedule has been flipped. So everything that was going to be later in the afternoon is now in the morning. Most things have worked out okay. But
that's great.
Yeah, but I would love to meet in person sometime and hug you. That would be
absolutely
fun.
Same. We'll get Jordana and her beautiful baby Poppy
Yes.
to come along.
Yes,
for sure.
Well, and it's just on there are so many really amazing humans that are part of opening up the legal space in the way that we've all been talking about, but it takes too long for us to all find each other. So
it does.
I just want to put everybody like in a bucket together and just be like, hi guys, we're friends.
100%. And honestly, that's the gratitude piece too I was talking about. Like, I'm so grateful that my entire journey has led me to meet people like you and so many others, because if I was just back at the firm practicing law, billing hours, like none of this would have happened. And it brings me so much joy. And I could tell it does for you. And you're creating joy in the time that you're here to see people and clients and friends and everything. So that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah. And so maybe next time we'll talk about perfectionism, and we'll talk more about maybe like intentional joy. And
yeah, I still need help with that. I'm still working on that.
I've become really good at it.
I really, really need that, because my old ways, I'm not one who typically prioritizes joy, and I have to work at it. So yes, I need help.
I got you there. All right. Fantastic. I'll make a note.
Amazing.
We'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. I hope you got a ton of value from this conversation, and that you will check out the links in the description to learn more about the guest and the Wellness Esquire. And I hope you take even just 1 minute to do something for yourself today. Maybe right now. Drink more water, say no, call a friend, do something that makes you happy, have a 30-second dance party, find something to make you laugh. Also, be sure to subscribe and send the podcast to a colleague. And if we're not yet connected on LinkedIn, please fix that. I'd love to know you. See you next time.